I'd like to welcome everyone to our comic meeting for October, those that are here and those that are at home. And if you're at home listening, we want you to come on down. So November, we're going to make a big effort to have you come on down to the meeting, come back to the rooms on it, and we'll be fine. If you start with every meeting, we're going to start off by saluting the flag. And so please ask everyone to please stand. Flag is right over to my right. And follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to go ahead and introduce our board. And this board's really been dedicated because with the COVID, we've had to postpone elections. And we also went through the death of our president, Peter Katz. And we've had a very interesting year. So Irma, would you want to introduce yourself, please? Irma, what neighborhood are Mid-City? Terry?
Terry McCall, Councilor Santiago, welcome. Have a good night.
Martin?
I don't need a microphone. You can hear me, right?
There's the guy at home.
I taught high school kids for 20 years. I got a voice. I'm Evangeline Neronsky, and I'm Vice President Secretary of this wonderful organization. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Those of you that took the chance to come out tonight without your mask, that's great. Or with your mask, that's fine too. But thank you for coming. We're glad to have you.
And your neighborhood is Wilshire Square. Thank you. My name is Carl Vininger, and I'm in Metro Classic, which is the south side of the city on it. Okay, we're going to start off with update from the city budget. And I'm very pleased to hear Kathryn and actually the city manager talking about that they're looking down the road. So can you go ahead and folks.
Thank you. So good evening. I'm glad to be back here at Comlink to talk about the city's budget. Overall, as long as we remain vigilant, the budget should be in pretty good shape. We've refinanced our pension debt to save a lot of money, but there's still more to be done to prepare for the Measure X rate decrease in 2029. So we're definitely looking at that. We're kicking off the next budget season soon, and I'm really looking forward to a new tool that we're going to roll out this spring for gathering public input. More to come on that later. But in the meantime, to tide you over, we have Waldo Barella, our budget manager, here to make a brief presentation about the budget.
I was telling somebody earlier, in budget, we usually don't get applause, so thank you. I know you got a busy agenda today, so I'm going to briefly go over some of the highlights that we have and go over the budget in general. So just kind of move this thing along here. We'll go ahead and go to the next screen. Maybe I didn't turn it on. Or if we can advance it. So a little bit about the general fund. I'm assuming it's on the revenue side. The biggest thing is always property tax and sales tax. Those are kind of our biggest drivers of the general fund budget. But also we have the cannabis revenue that's always continued to grow over the year, and then followed by our business license and utility user tax. But the sales tax and the Measure X, that seems to occupy a good majority of the city's budget, and then the property tax would be following. So next slide will be the general fund expenditures. So as you can see, our public safety is always a priority, and our police and fire generate spend most of the budget, over 50%, as well as Kathryn had mentioned about the unfunded liability for the general fund. And part of that had been refinanced. It was 138 million with about $138 million in savings, with about 118 million that will be related to the general fund over a few number of years. Of course, we have the parks and the public works department. We have transfers for our debt service for our police facility and other debt, and then library and parks as well. Overall, the general fund is approximately 49% of the overall citywide budget. And then we have these other funds that usually generally have restrictions. We have housing funds, we have water enterprise funds, parking enterprise funds, a lot of different grant funds and special revenue funds to do capital projects. So that's part of our operating budget that we see here. Next slide is just quickly Measure X spending, because a lot of people ask questions about Measure X spending. This is a cumulative, so this is since the inception of Measure X on to how we spend our money. So this kind of illustrates that we spent some on street improvements and parks, some still for our firefighter and police pension liability, as well as our miscellaneous pension liability as well. And then some money there, about 3.4 million to maintain our parks, and obviously continue to improve on our response times in the police department. Overall, in this year's budget, we have about $1 million in sidewalk improvements. We've also, I know what's of interest in this particular group is the code enforcement. There's always been a call for increasing code enforcement. So right now we're up to just 16 code enforcement officers, which is a big improvement over the number of years. We restored a lot of our recreation programs that were dormant during COVID. Also reinstituted our park ambassador program. And then as far as our capital improvement plan, we have about $57 million in various infrastructure improvements. So this would be your water, your sewer, your streets, traffic improvements, also some projects, and there's always a lot more that we can do. And then also we've added the first ever Vietnamese community liaison as part of this year's city budget. This is like great. I mean, you got applause, you got excitement. So I'm really pleased. One of the things people ask a lot about is the cannabis public benefit fund and how we spend the money. So what I'm going to share with you is just kind of what the plan is for this fiscal year. So I'm going to talk about the enforcement first of all. We have the city attorney's office who does a lot of the enforcement if we have to defend the city, but also prosecute different people. So we have the city attorney budget at 718. Our planning and building, which is where we house some of the code enforcement officials, 979. Our police also for various types of enforcement, cannabis enforcement and other types of things that are needed, about 1.6 million. And then for the finance department, for us, we do a lot of the auditing and checking of the cannabis businesses. So there's 360,000 there for us. But a good majority goes to the youth services section, which impacts both the parks and recreation, as well as the library. So parks gets $7.6 million. Which houses 3 full-time recreation leaders, 10 part-time program coordinators, 2 full-time zoo education specialists, a youth internship program, which is, it used to be just a summer youth internship program. And now they're doing a year-round youth program. So if you know youth in your community and you have your children or your grandchildren that want to get some type of experience, go visit the work center and they'll help you out there. But it's a year-round program. The library, for example, also has $2 million, and they've done some improvements to their Wi-Fi hotspot, provide bookmobile support because the bookmobile will be coming hopefully soon. But we have that. They also have a vehicle that they're purchasing to go out into the community, into areas that maybe don't have access to library materials, and improvements at the New Hope Library, which has been renovated over the past year and is still ongoing improvements. The next steps as far as the budget is concerned is we have a couple of meetings coming on up. All these are council meetings, with the exception of the community budget meetings. Those are going to be things where we come here to this, to here as well and go out into the community to get your feedback. But in December, we're going to hopefully have preliminary year-end results for 2021, provide an update to the city council, as well as we are in the beginning stages of the first quarter. We'll also kind of outline our budget calendar, like this is where we're going to be going. These are the meetings, make city council aware of where we're going and how many meetings we plan. And then in February, we're also going to have what we call our mid-year report. And this is kind of a 6-month update where we let know and make adjustments as we get more information on revenue, sales tax and property tax, and other things that we need to do. Then in March and April, we'll have a budget workshop with our city council, get some feedback from them to see what direction the budget will be headed for in 22-23. And also during the months of March and April, we'll be hosting those community budget workshops. Now that kind of COVID's kind of gotten a little bit better, we hopefully plan to go out into the community a little bit more, maybe at some of the neighborhood associations to have you host that. Then in May and June, we provide a 3rd quarter update, provide a proposed outlook on the fiscal year 22-23 general fund budget. And then in June, we hold our formal hearing on the budget and the CIP and personnel changes and miscellaneous fees. And we go through that process and hopefully get that approved in June. And then we start off July 1st. With that kind of concludes my comments. If you have any questions or anything like that, we have our email address as well as our phone number. And we left some material out there. If you want to take that up, that have the presentation, you can go ahead and do that. So with that.
I just have one. Right now, we are expecting a deficit or a break-even for this year.
Thank you. We did have a plan to use some of the fund balance this year to help balance the budget. But we do have, I'm just going to give you a sneak preview of our first quarter update that's coming soon. We did get some extra sales tax money, more than what we were expecting. And so we are much closer to a break-even situation.
Thank you for that update. Appreciate it. We don't have any questions from on the Zoom. Very good. We appreciate it, Laura. Thank you very much. We are going to try Zoom. Is it Lisa? Hello, Lisa.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
Go ahead. We can hear you.
You guys can hear me? Hello, everyone. This is Lisa Solomon. I'm the principal at Madison Elementary School, but I'm also the liaison for Comlink. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to share the screen. Hold on one second. It says it's still disabled, but I'm here to let you know about what's happening in Santa Ana Unified. Let me try one more time. And if not, it's okay. I'll go ahead and I'll just speak to our points. We wanted to let everybody know that the enrollment timeline has already opened up for our upcoming school year. I know it seems really early, but we wanted to let everybody know that you can start. We're going to start having meetings for our fundamental school lotteries for anyone who's interested. So please get the information out to your neighborhoods and let them know. You can go to enroll in Santa Ana at any time, of course, in Santa Ana schools at www.sausd.us enroll. Oh, perfect. Yes, I see it now. Thank you. Awesome. That makes my job so much easier. And we just wanted to make sure that everybody knew about enrollment being open up. We're taking students throughout the year, but we are going to be starting the lotteries for our fundamental schools. We wanted to let you know about important dates that are coming up. We had, of course, our board meeting already. We have a duty day, which is a student-free day for kindergarten through 12th grade on November 5th. So our students will not be in school that day. It is a day for professional development and for teachers to be preparing grades and report cards. We also are going to have a special board meeting on November 8th, our regular board meeting on November 9th. And we also wanted to let you know that we have a holiday in November. November 11th, it's a Veterans Day, it's a Thursday. And our holidays for Thanksgiving are coming up as well, the 22nd through the 26th. We wanted to let you know about wonderful things that are happening in Santa Ana. We received from Concordia an Award of Excellence in Education for our program in preparing future teachers. For those of you that don't know, at Century High School, we have a program called Teach Academy, and students from Century go and tutor at the neighborhood schools, including Madison, and they help to prepare students to become teachers in the future. We celebrated School Lunch Week. We participated, of course, in the 5K Revive Santa Ana Run. We just had the Great American Shakeout where we prepared for earthquakes, and you can see a picture of a student preparing under his desk. We celebrated Unity Day, which is about inclusion and making sure that we're being friends and taking care of others during Bullying Prevention Month, which was October. Also, we're celebrating Red Ribbon Week this week. We're finishing it up tomorrow with lots of fun spirit days that we're having at the schools. And we also had a Native American family outreach meeting, making sure that we were reaching out to our families and making sure that they know about what services we provide in Santa Ana. we wanted to let you know that, as you may have already heard, we're planning, they've been studying the process to establish trustee areas, which means kind of like a little bit of redistricting different areas that would be represented as we're voting for school board members. So we just wanted to let you know that we have meetings coming up and we want to hear your input, and you're going to be part of the planning process as well. We had 2 meetings, October 18th and the 25th. Our next one is November 8th, and it's going to be at Century High School. And then we have one December 6th at Segerstrom. And you truly are part of the planning process. They're looking at areas, how we would kind of redistrict and change things around. And we're making sure that we're answering the community's questions. We want to know what concerns you may have with this, as well as input that you may have. So please try to join us at one of our meetings. We've been having free COVID testing available to everyone from 8 to 12 Saturdays at the Santa Ana Unified School District. Our students have been also getting tested at the school site, so we wanted to let you know that that's happening. And we also have drive-through flu clinics that we're also offering. We wanted to let you know that our SAUSD.TV is moving to SAUSD Live. So please make sure that if you have it bookmarked or if you have it on your computer, make sure you go to the correct site. And then this is the enrollment timeline that I was talking about. We have schools that are called fundamental schools, and there's sibling priority registration, and then we have meetings so you can learn about the different schools, including MacArthur, Greenthorpe, Middle College. ALA is a special program that we offer, Godinez, Muir, Segerstrom, Mendez, and Villa. So they will be having meetings from November all the way till January, just so you can find out about the different programs that they offer. And then we have a special priority lottery for employees of Santa Ana Unified School District. And then we have a lottery for anyone who's interested in having their child attend one of the fundamental schools. So we wanted to make sure that you knew all about that. And the timeline can be found on the SAUSD website as well. And then, of course, we just wanted to make sure that you are connecting to us. Please follow us on Facebook and all our other social media so you can find out about what's going on in Santa Ana Unified. I was told to keep my report short, so if there's any questions, please let me know.
Any questions from the audience for Lisa? Ruby?
Yeah, Lisa, this is Ruby, and I'm a neighborhood president in our two blocks. And why is it so difficult to have neighborhood meetings okayed by the school district? We usually have meetings at Fremont for the last few years, but now they won't allow community meetings or association meetings at the schools without a large cost.
You know what, I'm going to have to look into that. I know that because of the COVID guidelines, right now it's been very difficult. Before we had signed kind of like a joint use agreement, and I'm going to have to talk to Margarita about this, because we have been, like, usually, like you said, sharing our sites, but I will look into it with the school district, and I'll ask our superintendent what we can do to help maybe, I'm not going to say lift the cost, because I don't want to make any promises, but see what we can do, so then we're working in partnership. And I know right now it's a very limited access because of COVID guidelines. So administrators have to be here. We have to sign everybody in who comes in on campus. So I just want to make sure that you understand that for right now, there are some of those restrictions, but I will look into it. And for the next meeting, I can bring back more information. And if not, I want to make sure that you guys all know that you can always get a hold of me or text me. George knows he can. I know Evangela and Carl, you guys have all been able to get a hold of me when you've needed me. You can call me at 714-749-0877. If there's any questions that I can answer for you. I'm going to put it in the chat too, and I'm going to say it one more time. 714-749-0877. And was it Patricia who asked the question?
It was Ruby.
Oh, Ruby. Okay. Ruby, let me look into that so then I can find out what it is that's kind of changed from before to now, and then see what we can do. So see if we can work in partnership with you.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, it's not Ruby's neighborhood, but also a lot of our neighborhoods are having the same problems. Mine, Metro Classic, we meet at Taft, and we're not allowed to right now.
Right.
Diego?
Yep.
Alberta Christie with Valley Adams and Centennial, Laurelhurst, and Shadow Run. Okay, we were meeting at Valley, and they told us, the reason why we were able to meet the last 2 months was because I put the principal on the agenda. So
Oh,
now he's not on the agenda, okay? The reason why the school district is charging $139 per meeting from the neighborhoods is because of liability insurance. That's exactly what she said, and that is the problem. We're poor. We are poor, and we don't have that, okay? So that's what they're coming, that's what Mrs. Berger at Valley told us, but I was smart enough to put her on the meeting agenda the last 2 meetings, and now, until this is cleared up, we have no more meetings at all.
and I can tell you on my part of Alberta, I'm on the Madison Park Neighborhood Association. So I'm already part of the association. So when we had meetings here, I don't think there was ever an issue because I was here for every meeting. So let me find out though what we can do, because I'm hoping that we can work through this, because we are working together, district, city, neighborhoods. And when we're working together, of course, things are always better, not just for the neighborhood, but also for the schools. Thank you, Alberta, for sharing.
Okay, you're welcome.
Hey, do we have any questions on online? No. Okay. Lisa, we very much appreciate as always, your input. We appreciate your time, and we'll appreciate if we can get back meeting again.
Okay, and just so you know, Margarita did let me know that they're already working with Susie Lopez Guerra, but since I report back to the superintendent, I'm gonna let him know that this is also an issue that came up. So then it'll be put on his radar. I'm sure Susie already let him know, but we'll make sure that we follow up. Thank you, everyone.
Very good. Thank you, Lisa. We appreciate coming by Zoom. We appreciate it. Thank you. Our next speaker will be the chief. We just got a cup of coffee. I always know how to bother him.
No donut?
I'll let you have it.
I'm not gonna, if I speak here, do I have to hold that? Am I good? I don't normally stand behind a podium. But I'm gonna comply. Okay. And yes, I will take a donut on the way out. What I call cop food. Thank you for having me. I know it was a bit of a scheduling nightmare to make it happen. And then, of course, the gentleman that I wanted to introduce to you just ran away. So I don't know if he got scared or what. I think he went to the bathroom. He'll be back. So it's interesting. You all have not met on a regular basis, right, because of COVID, and you're trying to get all representatives back in person. But yet tonight we have, and I want to welcome Councilwoman Phan here. We have former council members. We have future council members in the room, and yet such a small group, right? So welcome, and I appreciate seeing everyone. A lot of familiar faces, a couple of new faces, but I'd say 90%, and probably at home as well. So what was I asked to do? Q&A, and then just provide overall comments. Since I was told to keep it short, I didn't do a PowerPoint. That's my excuse. But apparently we do have some structured questions. Yes, sir. What?
Let me feel right at home. My wife does something the same thing. Right now with rising fuel costs, how does that affect the police department, rising fuel?
Fuel, yeah.
You guys have a supply, or are you?
Yeah, we do. We have a regular supply. I think here locally, we pay obviously the local rate. Thankfully, we're not in Los Angeles County. I was told they're up to about $6.50 a gallon. So I think here the going rate is what, about $4.40 or so. So we have a regular supplier that we work with. So thankfully, we're still good. We do need fuel to put in the vehicles, to patrol, et cetera. So we're good right now on that.
Is there any looking at fully electrical police vehicles?
For frontline patrol services, which require the ability to move quickly when necessary, or in the event of a pursuit when people do not comply, it's there's been some testing, but it hasn't quite stuck. Now, there's other areas of the police department where we can explore and in fact have implemented those measures. Parking control is one. Traffic services, they don't, they don't need to go from point A to point B quickly. So we've done that. Some hybrid vehicles as well. And then on the city side as a whole, I know they've incorporated some green technology as well. So my questions.
Don't you hate organized people?
No, it's good. So you want to leave them up here and I can
Yeah,
go? Or-
these are the minutes. So here's the.
Is it working now?
First, you want me to stand down the podium?
Just a second. It is?
Okay, so what we saw was an increase in crime specific to illegal gambling locations, both commercial and residential. And probably by the response, some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. You may have called in some tips and complaints. So we saw that, and what happened was we had gangs infiltrated that trade, and were really controlling that. So we had to approach that from a very traditional perspective. We served a number of search warrants. Closing down an illegal gambling location takes some time in terms of surveillance and documenting observations, then going and getting a search warrant or arrest warrants, whatever the case may be. But it was a concerted effort. It involved a whole host of officers throughout the organization. We do have specialized units that focus on this, but this required all hands on deck. And so literally, and I went to a couple of these search warrant services out in the field, and either residents or business owners adjacent would come out when officers were on scene, and very appreciative because nobody wants to deal with this and all the riffraff that comes with it. These illegal gambling locations draw you name it in terms of criminal activity, narcotics, prostitution, gun trafficking, you name it, it happens in and around. We had a shooting just outside. The dispute began inside the gambling location, and it spilled out outside. And I think that was a murder, if I recall correctly. Person died, shot, killed. So I follow very closely the trend on shootings and murders specifically, gang murders. It's very difficult to prevent murders in the home when it comes to domestic violence, things like that. We have resources, obviously. We have a family resource, family justice center. But to proactively prevent that, that can be difficult. Now, addressing and mitigating street violence, that we can do a bit more based on intelligence. So we're not just having officers driving around in circles. We have an intelligence report that's generated, and we know exactly who has a dispute with who. And this requires, kind of that, old traditional walking the streets, talking to people, and understanding the dynamics of the different neighborhoods. So it's labor intensive, but it pays dividends. And so with that concerted effort, we began to see a decline. And so we don't say, okay, let's go ahead and take a step back. We've got it solved. The other very troubling trend that we see is the seizure of ghost guns. And that is highly problematic because these are unserialized, untraceable weapons. And these are not used by someone going out to hunt elk. It's not generally folks that have those in their possession. Usually we see gang members, career criminals, people that want to commit a specific crime and not be detected. And oftentimes they'll commit crimes or shooting or murder and then disassemble the weapon and discard it. So I think Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles, upwards of 40+% of all of their gun seizures today are ghost guns. We had about 115% increase in ghost gun seizures this year compared to last year. And then overall seizures of guns as well, serialized guns are also up. So we have to continue to stay focused in that area. And as I tell my boss, we have to do this so that we're able to have a safe environment. So we're able to do all the other good community work that we want to do. Parks, recreation, libraries. As I was sitting back there, I was thinking about our library director and our Parks and Rec director. And I worked with many over the years, and the ones that we have currently today are exceptional. They're exceptional. And I often tease them that you have to support us because you can't do what you want to do if we don't have a safe environment and good public safety programming. So that's kind of what's going on there. I also wanted to maybe break and then I'll open up for questions. I want to introduce, come on up here, Robert. So we have 3 deputy chiefs in the police department. Our organizational chart is up on the website. That's a pet peeve of mine, is having a website that's current, relevant, and something you can navigate, useful information. So Robert Rodriguez is our newest deputy chief. One of the 3, he was promoted and is currently in charge of our investigations bureau. So that's all criminal investigations, gangs, homicide, vice, narcotics, child abuse, molest, all that. All criminal investigations are under his command. And rather than spoil, I'll let you talk about yourself a little bit. What's that? Oh, yeah, I'm not going anywhere. I want questions.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, everybody. I'm very honored to be able to have the opportunity to serve everyone here and work with everyone here and get to meet everybody out here. I did actually grow up here in the city. I went to public schools here in the city and other schools here in Orange County also. So I do have that connection and I am vested here in the community. So I'm looking forward to meet everybody here and hopefully we get to work together soon. Thank you.
Very, very humble guy. Deputy Chief Rodriguez is a veteran of the Marine Corps. He, as he said, grew up largely in part in the city. Was actually born in Tijuana. And so he's bilingual. You may have seen him on the television as well as our interim PIO from time to time. Currently working on his PhD at USC. I'm a Notre Dame fan, but in any event, there's apparently many of you USC folks here. So I'm glad to have him as part of the senior command staff. I addressed the hard questions. And so I'm open and available for any questions.
I'll ask you if I may.
Yes.
What happened with the? What happened with the? You want me to Kathryn? What has happened with the volunteer program? Is it going to start back up pretty soon? These volunteers?
Yes, yes. Police volunteers are essential.
As you know, kind of a side anecdotal story. My neighbor is a police volunteer with another organization. And she also is like, when is this gonna happen? When are we gonna go back? Kind of in hearing the school piece, obviously we want to do that phased in and make sure that safety is number one in terms of, PPE and availability of vaccines. We made vaccines available to anyone that had a nexus here to the police department, even our cooks in the jail, and everyone else. So, yeah, it's coming.
I need to get out work again.
I got you. All right. I think,
I just want to thank you for bringing back the directive patrol. And that is so important because when we started Valley Adams over that area in 1991, I mean, we had shootings, kids were being thrown underneath their beds because of the gangs that were right across the street. And it was funny because you had snipers go on the roof of Valley dressed in their fatigues and so forth that looked like soldiers, in combat, and walk on the campus, because they were going to raid a house at the Morgana's house over there, and which was the stash house, and so forth. And it was all led by the directive patrol. So last month and this month, 2 of the directive patrol officers came to our meeting, and I said, you just don't know how important that department is as far as taking our community back, not only from the gangs, but we had the gamblers take over John Adams Park. They took over the whole park, and we had a whole bunch of things. We ran them out through the directive patrol. So thank you again for bringing that department back and for them coming to our neighborhood meetings. And even though I didn't order them the second month, this month, they showed up to report back on the issues we brought up at the previous month. And that's important that we get that feedback back as far as community participation. And once again, coming up and saying, yeah, the police is out there, they are, working on the crime in the area. And we can go back to our neighbors and said, yes, you may not see them, but they know what the problems are and they're working. So thank you for the directive patrol.
yes, absolutely. And for those of you who maybe don't know what directive patrol is, we have a cadre of officers that are available to respond to emergency calls for service. The way that I, kind of staff and build up a police department is patrol operations is always number one. That's where you see the decline in calls for service, the time response. And then if any additional staff is available, and now there is because of our recruitment and retention efforts, then I'm able to assign to specialty details such as directed patrol. The difference is directed patrol officers have the flexibility and they're not tied to that 911 calls for service going from call to call to call. They're assigned to issue specific long-term problem solving, really is what it is. I mean, we had, I don't know if you remember Officer Leo Rodriguez from the original Weed and Seed. He just retired. And so when you're talking about, right. So that goes way back. But it's a model that works, and I'm a traditionalist, so you'll see more of that. And what I've done also is I provided the city hall a specific name of an officer contact for any neighborhood association that wants that as a direct liaison. You have a meeting, and your area officer will come to your neighborhood association meeting. Not all neighborhood associations are active currently. That's A. And then B, you have this COVID situation, which restricts in person. And then there are a few neighborhood associations that said, no, thanks. We'll call you if we need somebody. All right. No worries. So, you have a question?
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Police and the neighborhood association. But I also called your community watch program to help us come out and sign up our neighbors, and they didn't come out to the neighborhood. So how much more in the program is going to get better within the next year so we get a response and organize the neighbors with the community watch?
Thank you, Ruby. So when you say community watch, you're talking about the PSOs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you got no response?
They did not, yeah, I booked them and I wanted them to sign up some of the neighbors and
Okay.
get some of the signs out there that you have. And also that's very important for the neighbors to know some of the information, how to address the police. Because sometimes when they call the 911, some of the things that they ask are essential for you guys to identify. But sometimes some of the neighbors don't know that. So that's what I wanted the PSOs installed. Come out and talk to people, and so we can get a little more educated, because we've had a lot of burglaries, catalytic converters being stolen in the community, and I think that's part of educating ourselves in the community. So I really hope.
Neighborhood watch is essential there because you are eyes and ears and all that information. But I think a note was already being taken. I don't know why you didn't receive a call back, follow up. But I'm sure we have your number.
I followed up.
And rest assured, I'm not gonna wait till your next meeting. Do you mind if we call you direct then? Yes, perfect. Take care. Questions?
Okay, we do have an online
We have
question.
online questions. Okay, so I'm not the budget guy, but he can get any questions. Maybe I should say I'm from HR. Go ahead.
So we got a question from Danny. He asked, can we get extra patrolling in our neighborhoods? Too many homeless are coming to our property and stealing during the night. It's getting out of hand.
Danny? What neighborhood are we talking about, Danny?
Danny, if you'd like to unmute yourself, you can.
It's something other than maybe citywide, but just so I make a note of it. Anyways, in the interim, if he does. Okay, so we have the quality of life team. The city council just approved an expanded contract with CityNet. Oftentimes dealing with the homeless, a good percentage of them are not involved in crime specific. They either are homeless by choice, they refuse services, or in some instances, they will accept resources and be referred out. So we're working that strategy, and really to also force multiply that resource so that we dispatch the appropriate resources for what we're addressing in the field. If it is a crime, we still need police officers to address that, right? We can't have civilian service providers engaging with violent homeless folks or homeless folks that are armed or under the influence. We still need a complement of both. But we are looking to shift that, and with that, you get more service from providers such as CityNet.
I think we better close up here.
Oh, okay. I can go all night.
Yeah,
Can you come back? What were you saying? Danny, we have one more question.
Oh, I'm
The
sorry.
second question from Danny was, has crime overall gone up or down in St. Louis?
We just said that.
Yeah, so I think I addressed that. We're at a good point right now. Some property crime is up. I think that there is a tie, to the pandemic, to unemployment, people choosing not to be employed in some instances for a variety of different factors. But violent crime, we've addressed, we continue to address. We cannot, let off the gas there. We can't turn the other way and say, okay, we've done something here, we've done enough. Therefore, we need to redirect resources. So it's a constant, attention that we have to apply. Again, my approach is I'm one element of the entire city. So I want to make sure that parks can do what they all the good programming they want to do. In order for them to do it, for people to feel safe, that they can go to a park or go to a bathroom at the park, we need to do our part. So we'll continue to address that.
Tom, last question. Go ahead, Tom, ask it.
Quick question. In the past year, we heard that the city was building several different sites, homeless shelter, anywhere from 400 beds up to 700 beds. And that was going to be our cure-all, that we would not have the homeless on our streets, that they would be taken there. There are more homeless in downtown on 17th Street, in the empty buildings, the new art co-op building on Main and 17th Street. Will we just build a bill of goods, or have they increased? And what are we doing about it? I mean, this has been going on for years. Are you getting directions from the city council to stay away from these people, to leave them alone? Or what is the problem that we cannot take care and get these people off the streets, off our doorsteps, off our public property, that are creating litter, all the other stuff that goes along with the homeless issue?
So, Tom, I think you know the historical in terms of addressing this. And as I said before, there is a large portion of homeless folks that do not want services. They simply do not want services. And if they're not actively engaged in a crime, then we can't arrest them simply because they're out in the street, right? If they're committing crimes, if they're committing vandalism, then that's a different approach. The other piece is, the unfortunate part is during the pandemic is if they committed crimes, is the actual accepting of those bodies in custodial facilities. And then the broader question is that the best approach? The other piece is, is the police should the police be the primary response to homelessness, just homelessness, not crime specific involving homelessness? That needs to be us, continue to be us, right? But if someone is also engaging in continual petty crime because they don't have a place to sleep, it's about getting to the core of the issue. So the other piece we have, as you well know, is being the county seat. I believe still struggle with just go to Santa Ana. There's quite a few things there, quite a few things. You got county seat, you got a local, county, federal, state resources, and so that's a tug of war that happens. Earlier, before we started, we were talking about one of the other deputy chiefs that recently retired, Ken Leminsky. You may know him, many of you do, adored and loved. He has extensive institutional knowledge in dealing with the homelessness population. He's had some tremendous success stories with them. And so even though he retired, we brought him back part-time to continue to serve in that liaison capacity. And it's about relationships too. He works closely with Judge Carter. So he's able to leverage that as well. I have followed this. I've been engaged in this area. I have studied it. I've worked with executives from across the country, literally, on this. And I do not know of any police department force in the country that has figured this out to be the point to resolve it. It just doesn't exist. I think it's a collaboration of a variety of different services. All that to say what? That doesn't help you. When you pull out of your driveway, you see a homeless person, right? You need that addressed. So we have, in the police department, we have a variety of different folks committed to respond, and they respond in a timely manner. We have public works, we have code enforcement, they all work together. And so I'm familiar with the pockets that you've mentioned, a couple of them, and then citywide. So it's we got to continue to address it. Building homeless shelters, that gets us That gets us, I think a little bit ahead down the road, but is that the silver bullet? And will everybody go? I'm telling you, they won't. They simply will not. There's some that and then there are those that choose to be homeless. They're homeless by choice. Young people from Newport Coast, South Orange County that are homeless by choice. They don't want rules. They want to skateboard, use drugs, do whatever they want to do. They just are going from location to location. And so then, the balance is, okay, do we no one has directed me not to do something, right? Just to answer that question. So, but do we come in, heavy enforcement, and then what do we do with that body? Because I'm telling you right now, it's difficult to hold an attempt murder suspect in custody. I'm not making the rules for the state of California, right? I'm having to deal and mitigate that. So, the issue with guns, I had a roundtable. I was part of a roundtable with the governor, and I was the first one to speak up and say, we have to hold people accountable when they commit crimes, right? We have officers that go out and do good police work. They arrest someone with a gun. They're back out committing another crime before they're even held to go to court. It's ridiculous, right? So the homeless piece is complex.
Are we,
You got to move. I'm getting kicked out, but go ahead.
Yeah, we're gonna have.
are we still getting
I'm
other
sorry.
cities from
Tom.
South County to drop off the homeless people within our city? And I've heard stories that Orange Police are picking up the homeless people in Hart Park and bringing them here in Santa Ana and dropping them off.
Yeah, so if I'm aware of any specific information, police department's dropping off, picking up home, dropping them off here. All that information gets to me, I'll address that directly with that police department. You say Orange, great relationship with the chief there, pick up the phone and make sure that this happens. So if you have any of that information, please get it to us. All right.
Thank you very much, Chief. Thanks for coming. Is this working? Can you hear me? On there? Okay. It's a nice pleasure meeting you, Deputy Chief Rodriguez. Okay, and I'm sure we'll be seeing more of you once we get down there working again with the volunteers. We'll be there every week. Thank you again, Chief Valentin, for all your good information. We wish we could have you longer, but we've got to keep going on and on. Thank you for the questions that you asked too. Okay, Carl asked me if I wanted to introduce my friend here, my friend of about 7 years. I've known JD here at the code enforcement for the last 7 years. We've been working together. And a lot of us, I know when I'm out all the time, it's what happened with code enforcement. How come we don't see you anymore? How come this isn't getting done? How come they don't answer, et cetera, et cetera. But so that's why we had him come here tonight, or I asked him to come so he could answer some of these questions. He became my friend when he didn't like the way my office was situated. I had 2 desks in there, and the door is here to come in. One desk was facing that way, the wall. This desk over here was facing that wall there. So my back was to the door. And every time he went by the door, he would back up and go, and I said, sit in the other desk so that you're facing the door. So I had to watch it when I heard him coming. I had to switch seats real quick and sit on the right desk and make him happy. But anyway, he was watching over me all the time. So come on, this is JD Santiago from Code Enforcement.
Well, following the chief, that's pretty deep right there. Oh, no. Did he take all my time? Okay. First of all, thank you, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you all for coming. I don't know a lot of people in here. I know a few, so a little introduction I think is needed. My name is Jose de Santiago. I'm a supervisor for code enforcement. A little short background. I was raised in Santa Ana. I attended K through 12. I attended 2 universities, finishing my degree in criminal justice at Long Beach State. The city of Santa Ana put me through Golden West Police Academy in 1996, and I was your park ranger for 4 years. I patrolled all your parks, and I worked really closely with the Santa Ana PD. In 2000, I also worked for El Monte PD as a reserve officer. In 2000, I became a code enforcement officer, and I just recently got promoted to supervisor about 4 months ago. So I'm a newbie, and I'm a little short, so I'm gonna put this thing a little down. Overview of code enforcement in Santa Ana. Our code enforcement unit is made up of several teams. We have a residential owner-occupied team, a proactive rental enforcement team, and a commercial and cannabis team that works with SAPD. And just recently, we added animal services to our team. Why is code enforcement here? We are here to help preserve the life, safety, and welfare of everybody in this room and everybody outside. Very important. And the way we do it is by maintaining, all private property needs to be maintained in a safe and sanitary condition. Often making sure that everything on the property is well maintained and in good working order. Our code enforcement mission statement, I think everybody got a packet like this. If not, we have them up there. And everything we do in code enforcement has to be in harmony with this statement. I mean, we have to try to give people the right to, the time to fix whatever's broken. And if they don't decide to do those things, there are consequences. We also have, in this document that I handed out, we have our methods of enforcement. We have every piece of paper that we can write to help you be in compliance with the law. Now, do people always come into compliance? No. And like I said, there are consequences. That's why we always work with our city attorney and our Santa Ana Police Department to do our thing, to make sure that the city is safe. I did bring a couple of video to show you that we do engage when we're out there. We're not just your normal passive group. I mean, we get in the middle of things. And the first slides that we're going to show you is, the basic things that we do with property maintenance. This property, a little background, this property you're going to see is on Myrtle and Rate. And I think we're going to build a park right across the street. And the maintenance on this property was really, really bad. And through our enforcement efforts, I convinced the property owner, hey, look, you got to really do something here because we're going to have nice things coming to the area and your property needs some help. And at first he didn't comply like a lot of people do. And then the fines started coming. And it took me about $800 worth of fines to convince him that he needed to do that. And I think you see what it looks like now. Correct. Yeah, and a big problem that we have a huge problem that we have is a lot of the property owners here don't live in the city. So a lot of we have 50% of our housing stock, I think, are rentals. And, we have to make sure that they do their part. They don't live here, but, this is a rental, 57%, I believe the number that I saw. Yeah, it's huge number. So the second one's going to be a video, and this is just give you a little background. Like the chief was talking, we deal with a lot of illegal gambling. And just to give you background. So in this instance, we got a complaint, and like I said, we engage. We're not very passive group, So this is me going into this commercial business and letting them know who I am. Hi, City of Santa Ana Code Enforcement. Who's in charge? Hello? Hi, where's the boss? Who's the boss? Huh? What's the address here? You don't even know, do you?
I just.
10 to CP dispatch. Hi, who's in charge? Javier, can you ask Santa Ana PD to meet me at 1238 East Ettinger? No problem. Tell them I'm in a location where there's some possible illegal gambling and marijuana use in a commercial building. It's all right. Sir, can I see your hands, please? Okay, keep your hands out where I can see them, please. Just please. You can walk away if you want to, but I just don't want you.
The address.
It's going to be 1238 East Edinger. They'll see my car parked out front. But it's important for you guys to see what we do and how engaged we are in the community. We don't just sit back and write tickets from our desks. We don't do that. Just the other day, I had a guy sign $1,000 ticket because he decided to put his van outside in the middle of the street, and right in the middle of the street to turn it into a camper. I mean, block the sidewalk, everything. And I warned the day before, and he came back and did it again, so he was $1,000 ticket. That kind of thing. So we are aggressive. We are trying to. You guys are important to us, right? I mean, I work for you, so you guys direct me, right? So I have the second video, but if I have time, I'll show it. But I do want you to see one of our other videos that we do. And a little background on this one is we had a property that had 7 structures that were abandoned, and the property owner didn't listen. That's on Hawley and Civic Center. Appleway and Civic Center Hall.
The old farmhouse, is it?
It was a huge property, 7, yeah, it was huge. Yeah, you won't see a structure there now. They're all torn down. Everything's gone. Yeah, now we're just fighting to keep the homeless out of it because we're trying to make it camp out of it. But we're winning that fight. Because at the end of the day, people are going to have to do what they have to do to make sure everybody in this room is safe and everybody outside is safe. You see, I know you gave me some questions. Unlike the chief, I'm prepared. Don't tell him I said that. Oh, shoot, he's going to see it. Dang. Oh, that's not right. He's a road runner. Okay, we all went to high school together, so he'll forgive me, hopefully. Okay, one of the first questions you gave me is how the transition from COVID is working, how the transition from COVID to working full-time was handled. I gave you a written response and I'll give it to you after this, okay, in case you need me to elaborate. I know there's a lot of people that are wanting to speak. The transition from COVID to working full-time was handled very well by our leadership. Due to the pandemic, we were sent home and brought back as safely as possible. 3 of us were brought back after a few days off and the rest followed. I remember it being so busy trying to keep places like our bars closed per the governor's orders. I mean, there were all kinds of super spreader events going on. We had to shut them down. I think our leadership did a great job of keeping us safe, and we are thankful for that. Second question, number of inspectors now. As of today, we have 11 frontline code enforcement officers, 3 more coming by mid-November. We also have 3 code enforcement associates, 3 code enforcement supervisors, which I'm one of them. We are managed by our Assistant Director of Planning and Building, Alvaro Nunez, and our Code Enforcement Principal, Sergio Verino. And you guys know Mintai is our Executive Director. Any new code enforcement rules, I think, any new code enforcement for neighborhoods. Our city has strengthened our public nuisance section in the municipal code. that will allow us to have more control over all these distressed properties that you guys see. You guys see all these lots that either have a structure or not, and people have just abandoned them. I mean, just really bad, you know. If needed, we'll be able to require security guards, fencing, perimeter lighting, maintenance, and a registry, and have them register their properties in order to secure and reduce the visual decline of the property. The fines with these things start at $1,000, and I have a little thing to show you guys. My boss will tell me that I show you guys this. Okay. So you guys are going to see this all around town, and this is to let you guys know that we found properties that are really that are in, I mean, disrepair. I mean, just really bad. And this is to let you guys know that change is coming, whether they want to do it or not. You know, we have an abatement process where either you do it, either you don't want to do it, or you can't do it. We're going to do it for you, and then deal with it. You know, that kind of thing. Okay. So when you see these around town, know that we were there. Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so your next question was, what are the supervisors responsible for now? As a supervisor, we are responsible for the day-to-day operations of the department. We each have a team that we supervise. We manage their daily workload and make sure our process is completed in a timely manner. We hold each other accountable, and we hold our frontline staff accountable as we strive to provide the best possible service. As a supervisor, I still get a workload. I know Mr. Lutz knows that I go out on calls. Like anything you guys need, I'm there for you. You know, I don't sit behind, I hate sitting behind a desk. You know, I need to be in the middle of everything, as you saw in the video. Okay, so please call me. I have in your packet that you got a list of all of our employees and their phone numbers. And my card is back there that has my email address. Okay. And I'm always accessible. I always, after 30 years, this is my 30th year with you guys, you know, so I don't have a long time left, you know, so I decided, I'd say about 4 months ago when I got promoted, how can I serve you better? So now between 11:30 and 12:30, you'll find me in my office eating lunch next to my phone, and I will answer that phone. Let's see what else. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, what I can convey to the residents for a better quality of life. Comlink has always been a strong organization where neighborhoods can come together to reach a common goal. I can't wait to see this place packed again. And I'll tell you, when I retire, I'm coming here. I'll be a part of you. I still have a home here. Yeah, and I have, you know, like I said, I grew up here. So hopefully you'll let me be a part of you. Definitely. Definitely, this is where I want to be. I mean, like I said, I've been here a very long time, and I remember wall-to-wall people in here, and that's what we need. We need people in here. A better quality of life takes a team effort. Code enforcement is proud to be part of that team. By staying involved and recruiting new members, this organization will remain strong, and that's how we do it. And then I'm opening myself up for questions. So a little nervous, I know. You got through it. Any questions, you guys? Or did I answer them all? Yes, ma'am.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You don't know, when I was on the city council, 98 to 2006, remember the NICE committee? Neighborhood improvement, code enforcement. And when Lisa Biz and I co-chaired that, what was the first thing we did? Told you can't have code enforcement just for residential without enforcing commercial. So JD was our first commercial code enforcement officer. So he has a long history, and one of our big business, the O'Neills down there, had their trailers and had all these signs, and we had an ordinance with all those signs on those trailers. And every time they threatened to shoot him.
I've been threatened a lot.
So he's come a long way, so forth. But anyway, but just look what code enforcement has done on the commercial side. Look at Main Street, because once we convince Main Street now from what they look like And now look at what they are today, that whole Main Street of Murphy. So thank you so much for being our first commercial code officer and going through quite a bit.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you. No, I appreciate JD and what you do. And I really challenge everybody watching it here. You got a problem, give JD a call.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah.
And I'd just like to say, Jose, that Washington Square, our board and our officers, thank you very much. We have not had a lot of presence in the past several years or more of code enforcement within the neighborhood, but you've stepped it up. And you know several of the houses that you worked on, and I was told you had a full head of hair before you looked into 1130 North Lowell Street.
I did. Yeah, no, it's been an absolute honor. You know, this place has been tremendous. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. We're very fortunate with our busy schedule. Councilmember Phan has come to join us tonight. As we do all of our guests, we treat them with respect. If you have questions, please ask them. And Councilmember Phan, go ahead. She's the next speaker.
Oh, thank you. I can't follow that. He had visual aid, he had videos. It was like really way more exciting than having me here. But thank you so much to Comlink and residents, anybody's watching who may be watching later who couldn't make it out tonight. I'm excited to be here. I've been here a few times, met some really fantastic neighborhood leaders and residents and engaged with staff even before being on council. So I was asked to talk about what's going on in Ward 1, as well as rent control, rent stabilization, just cause evictions, and I wanted to answer whatever questions you may have. I'm very excited to have this opportunity to answer questions because, as many of you will know, I did not support rent stabilization in the city of Santa Ana. I've said that many times on the record, and through research, education, and speaking to residents, I changed my mind. So just so you know, Ward 1, it's definitely been a lot of work doing outreach to the community, particularly the Vietnamese speaking community. Historically, we did not have a good relationship with that community, which owns homes, rent, lots of small businesses, as well as religious institutions. And so just today, I met with leaders at the Our Lady of Lavang Church, one of the largest Catholic churches in the city, if not the county, and talk to them. What are some of their problems? What are some issues? How do we improve? And so I'm really excited to do that. I did want to mention that aside from the Vietnamese community liaison, we also will have a Spanish speaking liaison. They're both called management assistants now, and whose job is to, of course, we do a lot of translation, but every community has a different way of functioning, neighborhood groups and whatnot, and have someone who is specifically dedicated to going into those communities, going into those churches and neighborhood associations and whatnot, or community groups, I think would really help bring a lot of resources to residents here in the city. And it's something institutional, right? Services to residents shouldn't rely on the political process solely. It shouldn't rely on someone being elected. It should be a service that all residents deserve, whether or not you have a Vietnamese or a Latino or a white or Black council member. And so with that, I will just, go briefly over the two ordinances we recently passed. The first is rent stabilization. As many of you know, it will cap rent increases up to 3% max or 80% of CPI. There is a petition process for any landlord in the city to obtain a fair return. So maybe one year they say 3% is too low. Here, let me show you why they could get a higher increase than that. Moreover, our rent stabilization ordinance applies to mobile home residents. What a lot of residents don't know, or folks don't know, is that mobile home residents don't have the same protections under state law as other tenants. Many mobile home residents are seniors, those who are disabled, and those who are on fixed incomes. Those seniors, when I met with them, that was the only issue they talked about. Because when they were promised to work hard, obtain the American dream, and buy a house, they didn't realize that their land lease would go from $400 a month to now sometimes $1,000, $1,500. It's difficult for those who are on fixed Social Security or disability to make, and that's what that ordinance will help address. The second is just cause evictions, and there has been, even more than the rent stabilization ordinance, a lot of misinformation about the just cause evictions. The goal of just cause evictions is to help even the field for tenants. Yes, there are some protections under state law. I think that's great. But as we all know here in the city of Santa Ana, we are different. We are not the same as Laguna Beach or San Francisco or LA. Our residents are different. We have different needs here. And some of those protections are to protect, for example, victims of domestic violence, so that when a landlord says your unit is causing a nuisance, they will not just evict the perpetrator, they will evict the entire family. Victims of domestic violence are facing this problem. The ordinance will say, go ahead and evict the perpetrator, but don't evict the victim. Because if any of you have ever worked with a victim of domestic violence or been a victim yourself or known somebody, it is so difficult to go through that process, but also to be evicted, especially since the last numbers I have in the city of Santa Ana, third quarter of 2020, our vacancy rate is 1.25%, thereabouts. The average unit costs about $1,800 a month. Our median income is $70,000 a year. And a lot of times when you're a renter, they ask for first month's rent, last month's rent, and a deposit. So when we say evict the perpetrator, but not the victim of domestic violence, we're saying, aside from the person being victimized, don't put them in a position where they have to go find a new place to live with very low stock and spend all this money that they may not have. So with that, I would welcome any questions, or I can go through the particular parts of the ordinance. One thing I do want to specifically address, sorry, Jeff, is there's also been a lot of conversation about how this will affect single family homes or condos, and both of our ordinance specifically states that it does not apply to single family homes, homes in which the duplexes in which the property owner lives in one of the units, and does not apply to condos. So if I were to move out of my townhouse and to rent it to another family, neither ordinance will apply. So this is not meant to apply to those who are just trying to make it work, small mom and pops trying to just make it through and feel a little bit more of that American dream and invest in real property. It's meant to apply to the vast majority of landlords who are corporate landlords, who are LLCs going in, buying these mobile home parks, buying up these apartment units, 500, 1,000 units, and making profits, because that is what corporations do. That is their duty. I don't blame them for that. And on top of that, the vast majority, I think the last number I saw was about 70%, are not in Santa Ana. These landlords are from outside, meaning every dollar in rent that they get, every dollar of profit that they get from our residents are being spent somewhere else. Every dollar that our tenants save here in the city of Santa Ana is going to be spent in the city of Santa Ana, more likely. And so that is what these ordinances are meant to do. And with that, I welcome your first question, Jeffrey. There is a lot, and I do, it's a lot.
A couple of categories I want to talk to you about. First, on the ordinances, there's no sunset provision, is there?
There is no sunset provision.
So, as you well know, the whole rent control is fraught with a lot of controversy. There's certainly papers out there that says it works. There are a lot of papers out there that says it doesn't work. I think it will vary from city to city.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the impact will be here in Santa Ana. I don't think you know what the impact is going to be in Santa Ana. Yet we've adopted it relatively quickly, which is okay. We have an urgent problem. I would have liked to have seen a sunset provision and clear key indicators so we can evaluate whether this is working and what are the unintended consequences? Because while I appreciate that we're not doing anything with places that are being built after 1995, and we've told ourselves that therefore this will not impact new construction, I suspect if you're a contractor, a developer out there, and you have a choice of what city you're going to go and develop in, and there's only one city in the county of Orange that has rent control, you're going to stay away from here. That's a concern. It's not my concern, quite honestly. I don't want any more apartments. I think apartments ruin French Park. So I want to thank you very much for adopting rent stabilization. But I would have liked to have seen some sort of key indicators put into the ordinance, sunset. If it's working, renew it. If it's having unintended consequences, don't renew it. But we ran into this thing, and now we're stuck with it. So that's a suggestion I would have liked to see.
I do want to quickly address that. A couple issues. All of the studies that you've seen, the Stanford study, some that are cited, actually that particular Stanford study, Diamond, McQuaid, and Chian, they have been cited by a lot of news outlets. I specifically read that study. As many of you may know, I have a Master of Public Policy from the USC, the Sol Price School of Public Policy, as well as a law degree at USC. And when you read that study, every study on rent control says, the ones that are negative on rent control says, rent control doesn't work. The only thing that works is supply. The only thing that will solve the housing crisis to build more homes. And what I'm saying is, yes, I agree. Building more homes is the only way to save the, fix the housing crisis here in the city, the county, the state, and the country. But you know what? Every person sitting here knows Santa Ana has built its share of homes. We cannot outbuild the crisis. The city is tasked with building 3,300 units. We're on track to build 8,000. The county of Orange is supposed to build 183,000. The SCAG region in Southern California is supposed to build, I believe, 1.2 million homes. So when folks are saying, well, let's look at what we can do in the future, maybe developers won't want to build in the city of Santa Ana. You know what? None of the other cities are building except maybe Irvine. In Costa Mesa, in order to build homes or mixed use, they have to go on the ballot. Developers, if it was so easy to build in this county and other cities, they would already have been doing it. And on top of that, the city of Santa Ana is going through a general plan update. We are changing zoning in many areas of the city to address concerns mandated by the state. And we are looking at how do we improve the development of new quality homes in the city. But what that does is, let's say you do build a new home, a new apartment or condo, they're going to charge $1,900, $2,000. Who's going to afford that? When our residents' median income is $70,000 and a resident in the county in general is about $96,000 median, it's going to service people who are outside the city, who are going to move in. So I'm okay with that, right? We have a tax base, but the problem.
You can't be critical of that. All of the developers are outside of Santa Ana and not build something here. They will invite some wealth into the city so it stays here. Can't only build low-income housing and then expect the people in the low-income housing to build and develop.
Agreed.
We need a good balance in the city.
Yes, but what we're doing is when we're building these units, what are we also doing to help the current residents who may have been tenants for 20 or 30 years? My mom's lived in Santa Ana her whole life once she became an American, when she moved to the United States. She's been a tenant her whole life, and she will die a tenant because she did not ever make enough money. Luckily, as a first generation person who got education, I was able to afford to buy a townhouse. But those residents need help too, and building new supply is not going to help them directly. And so we need to have a balance. It's a holistic look at what our housing policy is supposed to be like. It's about building supply. It's about rent stabilization. It's about having vouchers to help those who are on Section 8. And it's about first-time home buyers, down payment assistance. We have all of those. Let's make it all work together rather than only harp on creating supply, because I would love for these developers to go to Seal Beach and complain about supply. Go to Huntington Beach, because last time I checked, they got sued for not building a development they were supposed to build. So I would love to see them go to these other cities and say, well, we're not going to build in Santa Ana because it's easier to build in Villa Park. Give me a break.
Well, let me just, I'll move on to the next topic. Homeless. You see you come up here tonight.
Yeah.
I watched all of the debates for the election last year, watched them because I was on them. Every debate for every candidate, number one issue was homeless. You go on the campaign trail, it's homeless. You come here to Comlink, it's homeless. Take a look at the last 10 or 15 agenda for city council. I don't see homeless on there. What I do see every single meeting is a report on COVID. To me, I've learned when I'm doing business, whatever gets measured gets improved. Whatever you put attention on gets improved. As a resident, I'm saying I'm not seeing enough attention from city council. If that's the number one problem, I want to see it on the agenda every single city council meeting. I want to hear ideas, and I want to hear the chief come here and say we haven't figured it out. Figure it out, because it's a problem. Well, our city is juggling way too many problems, and I feel we attract. He said it himself. We're attracting it because we're the county. We have got to figure this out. Thank you, Tom.
It needs to be focused upon. And I don't feel our city council is getting enough. I always see it at the bottom, future items, mental health. Why is that not number one topic? That's my request.
So I've heard that actually request from a number of residents, and we have talked to the city manager to do this kind of update. It is also an update on the website, but you're right. We should have an update every single meeting regarding this particular issue. I also agree that, well, we do have items on the agenda, whether it's Illumination Foundation, Carnegie, whether it's the lawsuit, but you're right. It should be a holistic update just as we do with COVID, and I totally agree.
Thank you. Tom, do you have a question? No. Just as a comment about my use of the microphone. Listening, anybody, any questions online?
No.
For me?
Yeah, I do. I'm a big supporter of the neighborhood initiative. And right now, when I first, there used to be at least 5 different staff members now. And there's poor little margarita there with a little staff. I would have thought that first, and then they did have a staff member, and because there was any staff down, they cut her out. And so I don't know, when you were talking about this, why you didn't put her in the initiative program, and add it on to the staff, because Margarita has had a lot of work to be done within the community to address all these questions that we have. I always call Margarita, and I think the city council took a look and put a bigger budget on that. And also, I'm always support these community liaison, but I think she should be working in the neighborhood initiative program too. So, and then you wouldn't have to hire an extra Spanish speaking staff person too. But I think you should really focus on that, because it addresses a lot of answers within the community with the homeless people, because it's a really big problem. So if we could put more money there, maybe have the Vietnamese community liaison work with their, because they're working with the community. I don't know if you all guys agree that we're kind of doubling what the staff neighborhood liaison initiative is doing in the community.
I definitely understand your concern. However, if you go to any neighborhood association meeting, particularly Riverview West or Santa Anita Park, there are almost never a Vietnamese resident who attends, maybe 1, maybe 2 if I show up. And that's a big problem. So I love these neighborhood association meetings. I think they're so interesting and it gets people out, but there is definitely a gap between those, the liaison now called management analysts, that will be working with a variety of community departments in general to help do the translation, to help do that outreach. Because, for example, if we put them in the neighborhood association, they might be working with the neighborhood associations, but we also need them to go to the Buddhist temples and the churches and the community organizations.
That's what a lot of us do. We do go with the Catholic Church. Catholic Church is very unresponsive. The Victory Outreach has been a great alternative to a lot. But that's all the same kind of work that we're doing. And I think if we focus a little bit more on community work, and especially, I think she's doing what we used to have a Vietnamese staff member and the neighborhood commission.
Yeah, we have also talked to staff and as well, they're very appointed to ask for, dream big. Let us know what you really need. And that way we can also look at where we can allocate future budgets. In fact, with Director Downs, I sat down and said, sorry, no pun intended, to say, I want to talk to you because I'm getting ready for the mid-year budget update as well as the update in June. So I've talked to a number of residents who have said that the neighborhood initiatives are a big issue and we want to kind of revitalize it and bring it back to what it used to be. And I definitely look forward to doing it. I've heard it many times.
Well, with lack of staff, and it has worked out a lot in the community.
Are there any other questions?
Well, that hand went up really fast.
Hi, Councilmember Phan. My name is Shelley. I work for CalOptima, and when you mentioned the liaison, it just piqued interest because you mentioned that the liaison will be working with the city of Santa Ana and working closely with, the community here. But I'm wondering, would they also be working outside of the city of Santa Ana, for example, with CalOptima, with social services agency? So just out of curiosity, I'd love to team up, work together. We have a large majority of our members that live here in Santa Ana, so I would love to connect.
Yes, definitely. And the liaisons, they're both, right? Management assistants, both Spanish speaking and Vietnamese speaking, are meant to work also with outside agencies and events. So I'll speak to the Vietnamese one because that was the one that I felt residents who elected me specifically we're looking to have. It's because a lot of Little Saigon, although Little Saigon started in the city of Santa Ana, much of the cultural and social impact has moved to other cities. And so this person would also be tasked with attending events in the county, outside the city. And if it's, wherever it is, to actually be involved, be engaged, and have a seat at the table, have a voice, and so folks in the community knows. Because what I've realized is that while a Santa Ana resident might not know about a program, someone else in Westminster or Garden Grove does, and they'll tell them. They share information all the time. And same thing with the Spanish-speaking management assistant. You could be in Anaheim, you can be in Stanton, you can be in Garden Grove, or you can be anywhere else and get information that could be shared. I think it's important because we also have to work with our neighboring sister cities.
Thank you.
Thank you. Question that I have, you're approaching a year of being on council. Believe it or not, and you ran twice. First time was successful, second time you weren't. What do you think your biggest accomplishment was? And your biggest disappointment?
I definitely have to say my biggest accomplishment as the first Vietnamese American on this council is the Vietnamese Community Liaison, also known as Management Assistant Bilingual Vietnamese. And it's very specific to a particular community, but this community was disenfranchised and forgotten. Santa Ana has over 25,000 Vietnamese residents. If we all congregated together, we'd be our own city in many other places. But residents have not been heard. If you've heard some of the recent comments at City Council, dozens and dozens showed up, they came out, and I am so proud of that. And I am really hoping that, I know staff HR is going through the hiring process. I don't know who's applied or not applied, but I really hope that this person becomes a legacy position so that in 20 years or 30 years, we're still going to have someone who is dedicated to going out to this community, engaging them. Because what it means when we are disenfranchising this community is they're building businesses in Westminster. They're investing money in homes somewhere else. And that's really a huge loss for us. And I really want us to revitalize that. My biggest disappointment is that while you saw hours and hours and dozens of residents come out in support of rent stabilization and just cause eviction protections, a number of interest groups are already going out paying for outsiders to gather signatures, lying that if they sign up with them, they will get rent control. That is my biggest disappointment so far because, you know, when you look at what happened, working class folks who just show up and say, I'm going to be here till midnight because this is what I care about, that is who I'm responsive to. That's who I'm responsible for. And when you have folks, industry folks who are making a lot of money already on our residents, trying to fight it, misleading with information, that's my biggest disappointment. That I wish they listened to their own tenants.
Any other questions for the council member? I want to appreciate you coming and giving your time. This poor lady at the previous council meeting, because I was there, I was on TV, 4:30 and 7 morning.
I was actually on vacation, and so I was on video, and but I was happy to take a day off from my vacation to attend because it matters.
Well, thank you for coming. David.
I do want to announce too that there is redistricting that's being looked into. And can we put the slide up there of when the meetings are going to be? And it's important that we participate or go to one of the meetings and express our feelings. And for us on the south end, as well as the north, is we want to talk to them about keeping neighborhoods together under the same council person. So we don't split neighborhoods like they have inside the past. So I really urge you to attend one of the meetings that are taking place. So we can express our views. Right now, they're gathering information to before proceeding with this. And this will be in front of council by January to vote to start looking at different districts and shapes in the maps. Right now, they're gathering information to do that. I do want to remind you that our next meeting is November 18th. We're going to be recognizing heroes. We had to delay our hero program because of the COVID. We have taken names. We're very happy to say that we have a number of applicants, and we'll be voting on them here shortly, and we will be at the next meeting honoring them, as well as we're going to make the next meeting in honor of Peter Katz's life. As you know, Peter was our president that passed away in August, and as usually November has been our Remembrance Month. Thank you for armed services. We're going to do that, but we're also going to be a celebration of his life. So that will be our next meeting, which will be November 18th. With that, I want to thank all of you coming, both those on Zoom and here today on it. And I wish you very happy and safe Thanksgiving. There you go. Halloween, and we'll see you all on November 18th. Thank you for coming.